We will be conducting tonight's meeting in person as well as in virtual setting using Zoom to allow staff, consultants, and public to social distance. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting tonight on Wave Channel 18 and online through the city's YouTube channel. If you would like to participate in live public comment via Zoom platform, please refer to the agenda for instructions. Chair Lyons will begin the meeting momentarily.
Michelle tonight. You're here, Rob gets out of.
It is now 6 o'clock, so I'm calling to order the June 15, 2022 City of Lincoln Regular Planning Commission meeting. Secretary, have the roll call, please.
Commissioner Cross,
Present.
Commissioner Gilbert,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner McKinney,
Here.
Vice Chair Manning,
I'm here.
Chair Lyons.
Present. Pledge of Allegiance, I've asked Commissioner Gilbert to lead us tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
States of America.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4 on the agenda is agenda modifications. Do we have any agenda modifications this evening? Seeing none, we'll go to item 5, citizens addressing the commission. Citizens may address the planning commission on any item on the agenda when that item is considered. Citizens wishing to speak may request to speak by raising your hand and when requested to do so. This time now is an opportunity to speak on non-agenda items. Secretary, do we have any hands raised or anyone in chambers who wish to speak?
Here in chambers, I did not receive any comment cards. Gwen, do you see
No,
anybody?
no hands are raised in Zoom.
Great, thank you very much. So that takes us to item 6, disclosure of ex parte communication. Do any of my fellow commissioners have any communication to disclose? Seeing none, we'll go to item 7, the consent agenda. All matters on the consent agenda are considered routine business and will be acted on by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a request is made to remove a specific item for separate action. Any items removed will be considered after the remainder of the consent agenda. Do any of my colleagues wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion for the passage of the consent agenda?
So moved. I'll second.
So moved and seconded. Do we need roll calls or can we just do a voice vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is unanimous. Thank you. All right, that takes us to item 8, public hearings. Item 8A is a general plan amendment for consistency with the 2021 Placer County Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan. Is there a staff report, please?
Good afternoon, Planning Commission. Turn it on, of course. Good afternoon, Planning Commission. My name is Efren Sanchez, Senior Planner with Community Development Department. The project we have before you is a general plan amendment to modify the land use and circulation diagram of the City of Lincoln General Plan. The purpose of today's item is to provide the public. The purpose of today's item is, okay.
We're getting the sound adjusted a little bit here.
Test. Okay. Can't hear me now? Apologize for that. So the purpose of today's hearing is to provide the public and the Planning Commission an opportunity to comment on the proposed general plan amendment. Request that the Planning Commission consider staff's recommendations and subsequent public comments during today's hearing, and conclude with the Planning Commission's taking action by forwarding a recommendation to City Council. A little bit of background on this project. On June 10, 2014, City Council approved Resolution 2014-105, which established compatibility zones around the Lincoln Regional Airport. The compatibility zones closer to the airport have more restrictive land use criteria by prohibiting certain uses such as schools and requiring smaller and or less populated buildings, lower structures, while those areas further away from the airport and flight paths have fewer restrictions. This was the first time that the ALUCP compatibility zones were incorporated into the land use and circulation diagram of the general plan. In June 2020, the Federal Aviation Administration approved the current airport layout plan. The prior airport layout plan was the basis of the 2014 ALUCP. The one significant change from the compatibility planning standpoint is the type of approach to the south end of the runway. The change results in a larger runway protection zone, thus the need for this 2021 amendment to the previous 2014 ALUCP. On September 22nd, 2021, the Airport Land Use Commission adopted the 2021 Placer County Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan that governs the public airports in Placer County. This document supersedes the 2014 ALUCP. The need for the 2021 update initiated primarily because of the new airport layout plan that the FAA approved in 2020 for the Lincoln Airport. So that's just some background context. So the actual project, the 2021 ALUCP contains two changes that directly affect the City of Lincoln's general plan. The southern portion of Compatibility Zone A is the only zone that changed as part of the 2021 ALUCP. The Compatibility Zone A expanded due to the increase in the size of runway 33 and its runway protection zone, as illustrated in the FAA-approved 2020 airport layout plan. The expanded Compatibility Zone A involves the main Lincoln Regional Airport parcels and two unincorporated Placer County parcels that are currently in Compatibility Zone B1 under the previous 2014 ALUCP. The new 2021 ALUCP also includes a new wildlife hazard critical zone and supported policies that prohibit future land uses or site features that have the potential of attracting hazardous wildlife. Flocks of birds are hazardous to the airport vicinity as they would otherwise interfere with aircraft during takeoff, in-flight, or landing in the Lincoln Regional Airport. The policy prohibits future proposed uses such as new or expanded wetland mitigation sites, conservation areas, and/or wildlife preserves within Compatibility Zone A and elsewhere within 10,000 feet from the existing and future runway ends. By including the updated Compatibility Zone A and adding the new wildlife hazard criteria zone to the land use circulation diagram of the City of Lincoln's general plan, it will be consistent with the 2021 ALUCP. So as you can see in this diagram, the image on the left, that is the current shape of the south end Compatibility Zone A. So Compatibility Zone A is this like darker rectangle shape. And so notice that, that rectangular shape is here. And then the image on the right is what the expanded Compatibility Zone A will look like. As you can see, this flared out triangle shape in orange, that is the expanded Compatibility Zone A. As for the wildlife hazard critical zone, so here you have the image on the left is the land use circulation diagram of the general plan, what it currently looks like with the 2014 airport land use compatibility zones in display. The image on the right displays the new wildlife hazard critical zone, which extends 10,000 feet from the existing and future runway. The wildlife critical zone boundary is at the edge of Compatibility Zone C2, but within Compatibility Zone D of the airport influence area. So these are the airport influence areas which are currently in our general plan. And so with the new wildlife hazard critical zone, it would essentially take a shape that kind of outlines this way. Similar to if you were to layer this green circle on top of here, that's what it would look like. Environmental review. The proposed general plan amendment, there is no substantial evidence requiring the preparation of a subsequent negative declaration or an addendum to the existing CEQA initial study negative declaration prepared for the Lincoln Regional Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan adopted by the Placer County Airport Land Use Commission as the lead agency on September 22nd, 2021. Staff has determined that this general plan amendment is within the scope of the 2021 ALUCP project. The map revisions do not produce effects to the environment that were not already analyzed under the scope of the CEQA initial study negative declaration. Therefore, no further CEQA environmental analysis is required as stated in the CEQA findings included in the Planning Commission staff report. So that leads us to the recommendation. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission conduct a public hearing, open the public hearing for the 2021 Placer County Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan, and recommend that the City Council determine that pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA Guidelines, Section 15096, process for a responsible agency, Section 15162, subsequent EIRs and negative declarations, and Section 15164, an addendum to an EIR or negative declaration. There is no substantial evidence requiring the preparation of a subsequent negative declaration or an addendum to the existing CEQA initial study and negative declaration of the Lincoln Regional Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan, which was adopted by the Placer County Airport Land Use Commission on September 22nd, 2021. And adopt resolution 2021-12 recommend that the City Council approve a general plan amendment to amend the land use and circulation diagram of the City of Lincoln General Plan 2050 for consistency with the 2021 ALUCP. Yes. Oh, I apologize. Yeah, 2022-12 resolution. At this point, if the Planning Commission has any questions of me, I'm here to answer any questions. And as well, we have David Maliko from the Placer County Transportation Planning Agency here in the audience that can answer any other further questions that I might not be able to fill. Yeah.
Looking over, excuse me, thank you. In looking over this, you have not reduced any of the area that the airport had influence over. In other words, the different zoning areas haven't been reduced in size.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So they expanded compatibility zone A slightly.
They expanded that a little and then, okay. So nothing has actually come in or been reduced, or in other words, nothing has been made more potentially dangerous by this action in terms of density changes for housing or anything else.
Right. It would make it somewhat like safer in a sense.
Yeah, no, I'm just making sure that I read it properly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Correct.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, just a clarifying question. So with the, I'm gonna mess up the acronym, the ALUP, I believe. So with this, so this is being adjusted, taking into account, there's still plans for adding the additional 1,000 feet onto the runway on the north end?
Yes.
Okay.
So essentially it's kind of like interconnected because in 2020, there was an airport layout plan that was approved by the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. With that, it has a parallel runway and also increasing it by 1,000 feet to the north. Because of those changes to the actual plan, the actual map, what you would say, then you have to also update the actual policy, the 2021 Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan, ALUCP. So they're kind of like interconnected. And that's why once you update those, then you have to also update our general plan to make it all consistent throughout.
Okay, yeah, thanks. I'm happy to hear that that's still part of the plan going forward. Another question I had was just the new area being introduced, the wildlife hazard critical zone. So what does that look like? So it's 10,000 feet and no wetlands and so forth. Is it basically just no development? Just, I don't know, what does that look like? Just like gravel, like something that just totally makes wildlife not able to exist in there?
So essentially it's kind of like deterring any type of land use that would attract birds, flocks of birds to that area. So like, for example, if you were to put a golf course in that area around that green circle, those could potentially attract birds. And then of course they would make it somewhat hazardous to the airport and flights. And similar to like, for example, wetlands, if you have wetlands, those are habitats for birds. And
Okay, so essentially it's basically just a barren
Yeah.
zone with nothing in it.
Yeah, David.
Thanks. Yeah.
Much for the feedback here. Good evening. David Melko with Placer County Transportation Planning Agency. PCTPA serves as the Airport Land Use Commission, and I'm the staff to the Airport Land Use Commission. So the wildlife critical hazard zone is something that FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, has been emphasizing. And as part of grant conditions, the airport here receives FAA grants. It requires compatible land use. And so one of the things that FAA has been emphasizing since 2014 is issues with wildlife, particularly birds. Birds, planes don't really mix, and this airport here is in the Pacific Flyway. And so there's a lot of bird activity. Now, we work with the Placer County Conservation team, Greg McKenzie, who's the PCCP coordinator, as well as with Steve Prosser, who was your former community planning director, and Roland Neufeld, as well as City of Auburn staff, because they're also affected. And so what we put together is a series of policies that are consistent with the FAA criteria with how you look at wetland development and any development that encourages birds. And so the policies don't necessarily prohibit wetland development, except on the airport grounds because of its compatibility zone A, and basically that is barren ground. But beyond that, in the other compatibility zones, the type of wetland or conservation planning efforts would have to abide by the policies within the airport land use compatibility plan. And so in that regard, there's sort of a mitigation, self-mitigation built into the plan that will then be part of the project development of any of those wetlands or conservation efforts.
Okay.
So plans can go forward, but they'll need to respond to the ALUCP policies.
Okay. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I was just curious what it looks like, with that special
I'm not
zone.
sure. I feel like I was going to ask the same question. I'm not sure I really have the full answer. If I own land that's in that, what can I not do?
Well, so, there's a lot of agricultural activity. And so under state law, any sort of land use that requires a discretionary entitlement with respect to that land use, then, has to go through a review. And then in areas with an airport influence area, those particular projects are basically referred over to the Airport Land Use Commission, for review and consistency with the compatibility plan. An existing land use is not subject to the airport land use compatibility plan. So if you're a farmer and you're just basically doing farming activities and continuing to do farming activities, you're not subject to the plan. So it's
Okay.
just new development. So a new conservation
But
plan.
it still doesn't really answer my question. What can I not do in that new development?
Build a pond, perhaps.
Well, if you build a pond, you're going to have to be able to build a pond that is consistent with FAA criteria. So standing water more than 72 hours is something that's going to be discouraged. There's slopes, in terms of how you do the pond. So, there's a variety of design criteria that you would need to do in order to minimize bird activity. And so, I don't have all of the criteria memorized. It's something
I
that you can
understand.
easily look
The
up.
examples are what I was looking for.
Yeah, so ponds, storm detention basins, wetlands with certain types of,
I would imagine you couldn't do a rice paddy.
no, rice paddy, well, once again, if it's an existing land use and it has been a rice paddy, it will be allowed to continue to be a rice paddy. It's if a farmer decides to do new land use and cultivate a new rice paddy, then they're going to have to follow the criteria set out within the FAA criteria and our policies that implement that.
Appreciate that clarification.
Yeah, but we really, I just want to emphasize, we really did work with the agricultural commissioner to make sure that these policies don't affect existing farming activities. And to some degree, are not onerous to a new farming activity, while at the same time protecting the airport. There was a lot of back and forth and compromise on all parties.
It's not that huge of an area, but I do think it's good for the public to know what the implications are.
Right.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you say a lot of back and forth and compromise with all parties, who are all the parties?
Well, so we had a working group. So we have a project development team for the airport land use compatibility plan. So that's composed of the city staff, Lincoln, Auburn, Placer County, Caltrans, because they have Division of Aeronautics. There was an FAA representative. You have our staff and consultants. And then within this particular topic, because the conservation plan was going through, its final efforts in completing its EIS, which actually includes mitigation with respect to making sure that the conservation plan is consistent with the compatibility plan. So we put together a working group with the Greg McKenzie, who is the conservation plan coordinator, and then his staff, the agricultural commissioner and his staff. Placer County has a public works department that deals with, there's the whole stormwater retention, groundwater management. So we had to, bring those people to the table because, detention basins are sometimes used to recharge, groundwater. And then we had the city staff for both Lincoln and Auburn, which included public works staff as well as planning staff. And then, of course, Caltrans Division of Aeronautics and the FAA. And eventually we came together, and I would say within 3 months, we were able to put together policies that the FAA was comfortable with. So,
Did you get an answer to your question? Yes, certainly a lot of people. The only question I have is, was there any private landowners involved? Are there any that are even in that property, or is it all covered by the people you mentioned?
okay, so the way we dealt with the public, including private landowners, so for each airport land use compatibility plan for Auburn and Lincoln, you have an airport influence area, and it's greater than this 10,000 foot boundary. So notices were sent to every property owner, mailed to every property owner, that there would be public workshop at PCTPA. We had several people participate. We also had a virtual workshop for the city of Lincoln that we held in July of last year, as well as one for Auburn. And so people were invited to that. And so we had people focused on the Lincoln plan, and then we had people focused on the airport plan or the Auburn plan. And there were property owners, represented at those.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you. Any comments from this side?
You asked my question about public participation, so thank you.
Any follow-ups? All right, so I think we've had enough comments from the commission. I think it's time we open the public hearing. And Secretary, do we have any hands raised online or in the room?
None online.
None here in chambers.
Excellent. All right, so we will close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission. Any further comment? If not, I will entertain a motion to determine that pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines, section 15096, process for responsible agency, section 15162, subsequent EIRs and negative declarations, and section 15164, addendum to I got to find the right line here, to an EIR or negative declaration. There is no substantial evidence requiring the preparation of a subsequent negative declaration or an addendum to the existing CEQA initial study and negative declaration Lincoln Regional Airport Land Use Compatibility Plan. Do I have to read all these numbers and
Is
everything?
this resolution 2022-12?
This is resolution 2022-12. I'm just reading the title of it. Adopted by the Placer County Airport Land Use Commission on September 22, 2021, and adopt resolution 2022-12, recommending that the city council approve a general plan amendment to amend the land use and circulation diagram of the city of Lincoln General Plan 2050 for consistency with the 2021 ALUCP. Is there a motion?
I move adoption of resolution 2022-12.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Gilbert,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner McKinney,
Yes.
Vice Chair Manning,
Yes.
Chair Lyons.
Yes. Thank you. That wraps up our public hearings and takes us to item 9, general business. We do not have any general business tonight. That leaves number 10. Do commissioner comments? Do any of my colleagues have any comments tonight?
Yeah, I'll just wish all of you a happy Father's Day. The father's in the room coming up on Sunday.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other comments?
I'll just say, since Leatherby's was on the agenda tonight, it's great to have another business in the area. I know living in 12 Bridge has been definitely feeling the excitement of that. So it's been great to see them make an investment in the community. And I know we went and enjoyed, a treat the other night, but it's good to see, that in the community. So just wanted to welcome them to the neighborhood.
Great.
You're here.
Anyone else? Seeing none, takes us to item 11, informational items from staff. Does staff have any items tonight?
The only thing I would advise our commission of is that we have successfully recruited a new community development director. He comes to us from the city of Sacramento with substantial experience. He'll be joining us, I believe, starting July 11th. And so we look forward to introducing him to you and getting to work with highly qualified, capable, professional staff.
Excellent. Glad to hear that. Anything else from the staff? Seeing none, that takes us to item 12, and we are now adjourned.